All right, today we're going to dive into a pretty incredible story. It's a case study about making something invisible, well, visible. We're talking about a group of students who took on a serious health condition that honestly, most of us have never even heard of. So let's see how they pulled it off.
And this is the big question, right? How do you fight a disease when nobody even knows it exists? I mean, when a threat is completely off the radar, awareness isn't just part of the solution, it's everything. It's the very first step. So where on earth do you even start?
Well, you start right here, with a mission. Back in 2027, a group of medical students decided to tackle this exact challenge. They built a campaign to raise awareness for a condition called posterior urethral valve. We'll just call it PUV. Their goal? It was simple, but so important. Save failing urinary organs. And believe me, their story is basically a masterclass in how to do public health communication right.
Okay, so before we get into what they did, we really need to understand what they were up against. We're talking about a hidden danger that only affects newborn boys, and the consequences, they could be devastating.
Just think about this for a second. What if your child had a serious condition that you'd never ever heard of? This is the exact question that fueled this whole campaign. Can you imagine the fear, the confusion? For so many parents, this isn't some hypothetical question. It's their reality. And it starts with a diagnosis they can't even pronounce. So, you see this number, 1 in 8,000, and you might think, okay, that's pretty rare. And it is. But for those families, for that one boy in 8,000, the impact is massive. This isn't a one-time fix. It's a life-altering condition that often means a lifetime of medical care. So yeah, the numbers might seem small, but the stakes, they couldn't be higher.
All right, so what is PUV exactly? Let's kind of get under the hood and break down what's actually happening here. It's super important to understand this to see why catching it early is such a huge deal.
You can think of UVU as basically a plumbing problem that starts before a baby is even born. See, it's caused by this little flap of tissue that's left over from early development in the womb. It's supposed to disappear, but sometimes it doesn't. And I really want to stress this part. It's not caused by anything the mother did or didn't do. It's just random chance. And that tiny little flap of tissue sets off a whole chain reaction. It's like a dam. First, it blocks the urethra, so urine can't get out properly. That urine starts to back up, which forces the bladder to work way harder, and its walls get all thick and stretched out. But it doesn't stop there. The pressure keeps building, pushing all the way back up into the ureters and the kidneys, making them swell. And that constant back pressure, that's the real danger. It can cause permanent, irreversible kidney damage, sometimes even before the baby is born.
So what should you even be looking for? The tricky part is that the signs can be pretty subtle. You've got things like a weak urine stream or just dribbling, that's a classic one. But also things you might not connect, like getting urinary tract infections over and over, poor growth, or even feeling a hard lump where the bladder is. Just knowing that these could be signs of a bigger problem is the crucial first step.
So you have this really serious condition, and almost nobody knows about it. The students saw this gap, and they knew they had to do something. And that brings us to the campaign itself. Their answer to all this silence.
Their mission was crystal clear. They had to take this complicated, hidden condition and drag it out into the light. They needed to get the word out to parents, to pregnant women, to the whole community. They had to give people the knowledge to spot the signs and really understand what was at stake.
So how'd they pull it off? Well, their game plan was just brilliant. It was targeted, it was creative, and most importantly, it was full of empathy.
You know, they didn't just use a one-size-fits-all approach. Nope. They were strategic. So in fetal medicine clinics, they were talking to expectant mothers about how important those routine ultrasounds are. Then, over in pediatric clinics, they were connecting with and supporting parents who were already dealing with PUV. And to reach everyone else, they went to a community club to just raise broad awareness. Super smart.
And this is key. They totally got that how you say something is just as important as what you're saying. Sure, they had the usual brochures and posters, but they went so much further. They brought in these cool models of the urinary system people could actually see. They had games for the kids like mazes and crosswords and even face painting. They created this whole friendly, interactive vibe where families actually felt comfortable asking the tough questions. And this right here is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. This is one of their brochures. Look how they use simple icons and really clear language to explain something that's actually pretty complex. It's visual, it's direct, it's easy to get. It's exactly what a worried parent needs in that moment.
Okay, so they did all this great work, but did it actually make a difference? Let's look at the impact.
And you can't just measure this in numbers. You see it in the questions people started asking and in the gratitude they showed.
This was one of the questions that came up again and again. Is PUV caused by something I did wrong during pregnancy? And you can just feel the weight of that question, can't you? The fear, the self-blame. It's just heartbreaking.
And their answer was a clear, compassionate no. By just simply explaining the science, that this is a random fluke of development, they were able to lift this enormous burden off of parents' shoulders. This is what public health is all about. It's about people.
And then there's this question, which really gets to the core of every parent's biggest fear for the future. Will my child need a kidney transplant? It's a question about the absolute worst-case scenario.
Now, the campaign team didn't sugarcoat it. They were honest about the risks. That yes, up to a third of boys with PUV might eventually need dialysis or a transplant. But by being upfront, they were able to hammer home their most important message. Catching this early and managing it consistently is everything. It's the best weapon they have to fight for a better future for these kids.
I mean, this quote from the report just says it all, doesn't it? Parents were grateful for the chance to learn about a condition they had never even heard of. They loved the simple, engaging way the info was delivered. The campaign worked because it met people where they were. It didn't talk at them, it engaged with them. That gratitude, that's the real measure of success, right there.
So after all that, what are the big takeaways? This campaign offers some really powerful lessons that honestly apply to any effort to communicate complicated stuff to the public. So what's the playbook here? What did we learn? First, make it interactive. People learn by doing, right? Just like with their models in games. Second, keep your message simple and visual. Think about that awesome brochure. Third, talk to your audience in a way they'll understand. You wouldn't talk to a pregnant mom the same way you'd talk to the general public. And finally, teamwork and collaborating with healthcare pros. That's what builds that essential trust. These are the things that made this whole campaign work.
And that really brings us to the final thought. This whole story, it's about more than just PUV. It's a blueprint for taking action. It proves that a small, dedicated group of people with a clear message and a smart strategy can make a huge difference. So it makes you wonder, right? What's the unseen problem in your community that's just waiting for its champions?